behind the green mask. United Nations Agenda 21, and the author is Rosa Koire. She has outlined the foundation so well that there's no way I could improve on it, and that's why I've asked her for permission to read this selection. Through her research, she found that much of the funding and power to implement local UN Agenda 21 Sustainable Development land use programs comes through the diversion of property taxes to redevelopment agencies and the methods used to implement social engineering. The arm of United Nations Agenda 21 is long and reaches into every area of the world. The philosophy of communitarianism pervades this plan. Communitarianism purports to balance the rights of the individual with the so-called rights of the community. Because the rights of the community are not defined in a constitution, they can change without warning or notice. One's individual rights are balanced against a continuously redefined amorphous rulebook. The slogan of UN Agenda 21, to protect the rights of future generations and all species against the potential crimes of the present, is both a smokescreen and a declaration of entitlement. By standing on this high-sounding premise, the rights of the individual are called selfish, and those who would fight for them slurred as immoral. The green mask must be drawn back, far back from the personalities, the little dictators running trusts, foundations, planning departments, city and town councils, provinces and states, non-governmental foundations, and the like. The green mask must be removed from those who have hijacked the environmental movement. Under the banner of saving the planet, we are drowning liberty. Your government is a corporatocracy, a new authoritarian state in the process of consolidating your output into a more controllable, exploitable channel. The technology that is being marketed to you is actually being used to condition you to expect to be spied upon and to spy on others. Every totalitarian state in history has relied on data collection. Your government now has technological capabilities that far exceed anything ever seen on the planet to date. You're in the midst of the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. The pretty pastel vision of life in a smart growth development is a manipulation, a mask. In fact, these plans are designed to restrict your freedom. Awareness is the first step in the resistance. In the U.S. Constitution, we are guaranteed rights that we were born with: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That last right, happiness, under the philosophy of John Locke, was property. Property is not just land. You are your own property. So how can you balance individual rights with those of the community? The community has no rights under the United States Constitution. Individuals have rights and responsibilities. But the community as a whole, what is that? The collective? Whenever you balance or subsume or subordinate or consensusize the individual's rights, you'll get something different from what we are guaranteed in the Constitution. Communitarianism, balancing your individual rights with the rights of the community, the global community. This is being pitched to you as the new enlightened form of political discourse. You are selfish if you insist on your individual rights and freedoms. This is the justification for UN Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. For the good of the planet, for everyone's security. Will your 15-year-old daughter be strip searched at the airport? Will you be taxed for driving 15 miles to work instead of riding your bike? Will you be fined for watering your vegetable garden? Will your smart meter be used to tell advertisers what to sell you? Will your smart vehicle with remote shutoff capability be shut down by someone in your state capital while you're driving? Will your neighbor report you to the community-oriented policing unit of your local police department because you seem to be acting strangely? Will you be denied the right to use the water in your well? Will you be required to pay triple your original electricity rates because your town has decided to go into the power business? Will you be accused of not caring about the planet if you question sustainable development? Your rights have been balanced. Welcome to the New World Order. Considering its policies are woven into all of the general plans of the cities and counties in the United States, it is important for people to know where these policies are coming from. While many support the United Nations for its peacemaking efforts, few know that it has very specific land use policies that it wants implemented in every city, county, state, and nation. The specific plan is called United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, the agenda for the 21st century. The plan calls for governments to take control of all land use and not leave any of the decision-making in the hands of private property owners. It is assumed that people are not good stewards of their land, and the government will do a better job if it is in control. Individual rights in general are to give way to the needs of communities as determined by a globalist governing body. Moreover, people should be rounded up off of the land and packed into human settlements, or islands of human habitation, as they're called in UN Agenda 21 documents. Another program called the Wildlands Project spells out how most of the land is to be set aside for non-humans. In anticipation of our objections to such plans, our civil rights will be dissolved. Only then will there be social justice, which is a cornerstone of the UN Agenda 21 plan, and are telling you that you are terrible for wanting privacy, for not wanting to be dictated to, for not going along to get along. The push is for people to get off of the land, become more dependent, to get out of the suburbs and into the cities. It's about remaking cities and rural areas to the sustainable model. High-density urban development without parking for cars is the goal. They call them transit villages. This means that whole towns need to be demolished and rebuilt in the image of sustainable development. We're losing our homes since this recession/depression began, and many of us could never afford those homes to begin with. We got cheap money, used whatever we had to squeak into those homes, and now some of us lost them. We were lured, indebted, and sunk. Whole neighborhoods are empty in some places. Some are being bulldozed. Cities cannot afford to extend services outside of their core areas. Slowly, people will not be able to afford single-family homes, will not be able to afford private cars, will be more dependent, more restricted, more easily watched and monitored. This plan is a whole life plan. It involves the educational system, the energy market, the transportation system, the governmental system, the healthcare system, food production, and more. The plan is to restrict your choices, limit your funds, narrow your freedoms, and take away your voice. One of the ways is by using the Delphi technique to manufacture consensus. Another is to infiltrate community groups, or actually start neighborhood associations with hand-picked leaders. Another is to groom and train future candidates for local offices. Another is to sponsor non-governmental groups that go into schools and train children. Another is to offer federal and private grants and funding for local programs that further the agenda. Another is to educate a new generation of land use planners to require new urbanism. Another is to convert factories to other uses, introduce energy measures that penalize manufacturing, and set energy consumption goals to pre-1985 levels. Another, to allow unregulated immigration in order to lower standards of living and drain local resources. The three cornerstones of UN Agenda 21 Sustainable Development are economy, ecology, and social equity. Loss of services to outlying areas means, for example, roads not being maintained to rural and suburban areas. Roads not being maintained to those areas, schools not being supported in those areas, law enforcement, fire, social services not being supported in those areas means a gradual movement into the denser city centers. Add to that the increased cost of gasoline, which is manipulated, and the higher cost of energy, which is manipulated, and you have more pressure to leave rural and suburban areas. Reduction of energy usage is key. Smart growth, new urbanism in redevelopment areas is the supposed answer. Smaller units, attached condos, little or no parking, few private cars. More eyes on the street. Redevelopment projects are one implementation arm of the UN plan and include rezoning of huge sections of your cities to smart growth zones. This physical manifestation of UN Agenda 21 is social engineering paid for with your property tax dollars. Add to this pressure climate protection campaigns to reduce our energy usage to pre-1985 levels and increased regulations on industry, and you have the perfect storm for loss of jobs and greater dependence on other countries for goods. As the population becomes more and more urbanized and less able to provide food or necessary products, more people will be dependent on the government for housing, food, and other basic necessities. Government itself becomes dependent on grants and loans with requirements attached. In this way, policymakers are influenced and pressured by the corporatocracy. Public-private partnerships favor some businesses over others and completely unbalance the playing field. Independent businesses go bankrupt. Poverty works its way into the middle class. As a major leveler, loss of money, land, food, and energy independence will bring the United States into social equality. This is a goal of Agenda 21. In 1976, the UN Conference on Human Settlements stated in its preamble, private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice. Public control of land use is therefore indispensable. Think about the implications of that You might have thought that social equity would mean that the poor would be raised up, but it's the green mask. Warehousing of the poor is the result, and crime will result. Community-oriented policing under the Department of Justice will encourage, if not require, people to watch their neighbors and report suspicious activity. More activity will be identified as crime, such as obesity, smoking, drinking when you have a drinking problem, name-calling, leaving lights on, breaking a curfew, and failure to do mandatory volunteering. The community will demand more law enforcement to restore order, and more rules and regulations will ensue. The lines between government and non-governmental groups will blur more and more as unelected local groups make policy decisions using the Delphi technique to manufacture consensus. The Chinese and Russian models are instructive in what you can expect under communitarianism. The War on Terror is a communitarian plan designed to terrorize you. You can see that the groundwork for this has been laid and is being implemented throughout the nation. When you create deep dependence and then withdraw assistance, the result is chaos and poverty. Propaganda infuses our culture with messages that there are just a few winners and many losers, that we are killing the earth and time is running out, that prosperity is an anachronism and detrimental to life, that individual freedom is selfish and injures those who are less free. The messages are crafted to shame and pressure you, and to create a sense of urgency that impairs your ability to reason clearly. Welcome to the New World Order.